So you are running to represent the 9th District in Congress. Can you tell us a little bit about what your top campaign priorities are at this point, and what are your goals for the district?
Well, listen, let's start here. We are in a literal emergency, right? The situation right now is unspeakable, with masked, armed men kidnapping people off of our streets based on the color of their skin. The fundamentals of our democracy being basically just taken apart brick by brick. So, look, my first priority is stopping the emergency. But I also really appreciate your question, which I think anticipates, hey, what do we want to do on a proactive basis? And I would start with climate and continue with economic security. And climate, I think, speaks for itself. But when I say economic security, look, there are not just people living in deep poverty, but people well into the middle and upper middle class in America for whom housing is almost out of reach, who are maybe delaying starting a family because childcare is so expensive, or our family leave policies are so barbaric, for whom college is unaffordable, healthcare is unaffordable, for whom, hey, I'm not doing all right now, but is my job going to even exist next year because of AI? And so we are living in this crisis of economic insecurity that is fundamentally, in my opinion, because corporations have become so large and powerful, and workers and consumers have lost so much power in the economy, and I think that needs to be rebalanced.
And you have these big campaign goals. How are you going to balance running this campaign and your responsibilities as mayor of Evanston?
Well, my duty is to the people of Evanston, and I'm not going to, that's not negotiable, right? For example, in the last several months, as I said, we've been under attack from our own federal government, and making sure that we were coordinating the right kind of response, putting our arms around each other to keep people safe any way we could. That's job number one. And hopefully showing what kind of leader I am and what kind of values I have through the way I carry out my duties as mayor is the best way to demonstrate to people what they would be getting if they voted for me for Congress.
And you've been bringing up federal policies that are having real impacts here in Evanston.
That's right.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you've been navigating the city through that?
Well, are you speaking specifically about the immigration-related issues? Because that's the first.
Quite a few. I mean, the main one is ICE immigration raids in the city, and then we've also had recent uncertainty regarding SNAP benefits, regarding healthcare subsidies. There's lots of local impacts. Evansonians are feeling it.
So listen, what's been going on is, I mean, it's unspeakable. It's unspeakable, right? I mean, it sounds like hyperbole when I say masked armed men driving around our town, looking for a brown-skinned person working on a lawn so they can just jump them and kidnap them. That sounds crazy, but that's literally what's been happening. Helicopters flying low, trying to figure out where their landscapers working so we can radio down to the cars to have them pick people up. And then, as we saw on Halloween, basically federal agents just beating people up for the crime of disagreeing, right? They were literally attacking people, assaulting people whose crime was saying, hey, wait, I don't like what you're doing. So these are awful attacks on our people. They are causing unbelievable damage and fear in Evanston, and they're attacks on our core values as a country, right? So what are we doing? I would say there are two components to the response. Part is just literally, what do we do as a government? What are all the things that we can do to keep our people safe, even though we are a local government. There are ways in which we can't, unfortunately, interfere with the federal government. But first of all, we have super strong, welcoming city policies, including an update and strengthening that we passed a week before Trump's inauguration. And so that means that our local police won't cooperate with anybody doing federal civil immigration enforcement, including private contractors, right? It's not just ICE workers or CBP or ATF or what have you. It's also if they contract out to some kind of mercenary organization, we won't help them either. We also protect our data, so city data doesn't get used by federal civil immigration enforcement. And this came into play quickly because the vendor, Flock, that we use for our license plate readers was not trustworthy. We no longer felt we could count on them not to share data that would put our people at risk with CBP. So we shut off those cameras, took them down. They tried to put them back up. We covered them up with a bag, and then eventually they took them down again. We passed a resolution creating ICE-free zones so that ICE can't stage from, let's say, a city parking lot to do their awful actions. And we also instituted a policy that says, listen, if ICE is in town and we get a call to our police department, we're going to treat that like any other call. and we send a supervisor. The supervisor tries to get information. So for example, when they were in town on Halloween, we got their call sign, which is a first step toward accountability. We opened several investigations, took accident reports, saw driver's licenses. These are steps toward actually holding these thugs accountable. So those are all things that we're doing as a city government. But I got to tell you, that's just the tip of the iceberg, because the whole community has risen up in this very, very inspiring way, creating rapid response networks. We've got people all across town with whistles, in group chats, watching ICE, coming out, making a commotion, warning people, and just generally speaking, frankly, making it so that they'd rather be somewhere else. And it's been effective in keeping people safe. Not effective enough, it hasn't done everything you would hope, but it's been really, really important in keeping some people safe. So that's just on the immigration side alone. You brought up these other examples that are super important. The SNAP benefits that are now supposed to be coming back,
yes,
but have been delayed and curtailed for all of November so far, and we're in the second half of November as you and I are talking, resulted in huge, huge need for food from people across our community. Evanston stepped up again. So our community has organized enormous mutual aid drives, bringing in massive amounts of food and gift cards and other needs for families who are struggling and suffering, not only because of the SNAP, but also maybe because of, due to immigration abuses, they were no longer safe leaving the house to go to work. Or in some cases, the breadwinner had been kidnapped by the federal government, and now families are living in poverty. So our community is stepping up and providing safety, providing resources to those who need them. I would say there are a lot of other aspects in which we're kind of unsure, where key services the city is accustomed to providing, housing, infrastructure, even our climate action, is potentially being held up because of the outrageous attacks of the federal government. And so we've got to figure out, how do we backfill those missing resources in a way that doesn't burden our residents too much? How do we find creative ways to provide services that we used to be partnering with the federal government to provide, but now the federal government is attacking our community instead of helping us?
One of your big projects since you've been mayor is Envision Evanston 2045.
Yeah.
I know last month the city council reviewed a draft comprehensive plan, but can you update Evanstonians on kind of where the project's at right now and where you think we'll go and how you can ensure its continuing success if you are elected to Congress?
Yeah, so let me start by saying what the project is all about, right? So we've got a housing crisis in Evanston. We've got the best problem a town can have, which is people want to be here. People are looking for housing here, but because there's so many people who want to be here and we have so many constraints on the construction of new housing, the price keeps going up and up. That's pricing people out of town, including people from families who have been here for generations. So we have a supply crisis. So Envision Evanston is a long-term project to address that. Let me give you a specific example. I'm raising my family of 4 in a modest attached townhome, about 1,100 square feet, share a wall with our neighbor. We're lucky to be there, we love it. It's been a great place to raise a family. Here's the thing, we couldn't afford to live in 95% of our own neighborhood for the simple reason that our home is illegal to build in 95% of our own neighborhood, where the zoning requires detached single-family homes on large lots, and that's not what we live in. So how are you going to have housing that's affordable for a mayor or a school teacher or a nurse or a firefighter if the zoning requires single-family homes on large lots? So we're trying to make changes to make it at least possible for housing that middle-income people could afford to get built. So there's 2 big parts to this project. The first part is rewriting the comprehensive plan. The second part is rewriting the zoning code. The comprehensive plan is like the vision. How do we want to handle parks and transportation and environmental quality in Evanston over the course of the next 20 years? And the zoning code are the exact rules that say you can build this kind of house but not that kind of house. It can be this tall but not that tall. There can be this many units but not that many units. And that actually is what governs what's allowed to be built. So the comprehensive plan is almost done. The next vote should be a final adoption of the final plan, which should be happening within the next few city council meetings. And then off to the zoning code, which is obviously tough and complicated, but I think we've put in place groundwork to really have an excellent product. And my hope would be that we can finish it in 2026. I would really, really want to get this done while I am still serving as mayor of Evanston.
The comprehensive plan?
And the zoning code.
And the zoning code.
Yeah.
Okay, and you think it's on track to get there?
Yeah, we would have basically a year before I would have to leave office to get ready to get sworn into Congress. And I think because we've come so far, right? We've brought people together. We've shared visions. We've talked about where we want to go. We've allowed council to really talk it out, both amongst themselves and also with their constituents. So I think another year to go from there to, hey, here's the final product is a reasonable time frame.
Well, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with us. I
I
really
appreciate your interest. Thanks, Paris.
Thank you.